Hi, I'm Dr. Megan McNeal. I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist. Please watch the following video with caution. As usual, it contains descriptions of violence. I once evaluated a woman charged with the murder of her husband's ex-wife, who was found stabbed to death in her bed. This was a brutal killing. The killer had stabbed this woman dozens of times during the night while she slept, and they gave her what is referred to as a joker face, where they cut from her mouth up into her cheek. Police believed the killer had climbed through a window into the laundry room, then went to the bedroom and stabbed the victim while she slept. There was no knife left at the scene, and none of the household knives had been used. Initially, the police believed the killer was the ex-husband, but he could show he was out of town that weekend. So the police switched their focus to the ex-husband's wife. That's the woman I evaluated, and I will refer to her by the fake name Tara. The police believe that Tara killed the ex-wife because the husband and Tara had been paying alimony to the ex-wife, and they were tired of it. The police also thought that the husband was still maybe having sexual relations with the ex-wife, and that would be a motive for Tara to kill her. A week or so after the homicide, police arrested Tara and charged her with murder. She said she had been sleeping all night, had no idea what had happened or who had done it. They searched Tara's home, and they did not find any murder weapon. They did not find any bloody clothing or anything that tied her to the murder. Over the 3 years she was in county jail, Tara denied having committed the murder. The police had little evidence connecting her to it. One of the pieces of evidence they had was Tara's DNA at the victim's house, and also the husband's DNA at the victim's house. But the couple had been there a number of times, and so their DNA being present was pretty easy to explain. The other piece of evidence they had was Tara's search history in her phone and on her laptop. Things like how to get away with murder, or how to get rid of DNA or fingerprint evidence. But Tara was a true crime fanatic, like a lot of people, and she had a long history of searching for things like that. There was evidence to show that someone else had actually been with the victim that night, because she had unknown male DNA underneath her fingernails. And she had a history of being on dating sites and connecting with other people for sexual encounters. And it was possible that someone she had met online had actually been the one who killed her. As part of the police investigation into Tara's possible involvement in stabbing this woman to death, they gathered video evidence of a car driving from Tara's apartment building parking lot 15 minutes into the victim's neighborhood where her home was located. They used several different cameras to track this car in the 15-minute drive from Tara's apartment building to the victim's home. At times they lost the car on the route, but they picked it up in later videos on the way to the victim's house. But here's the thing. It was the dead of night, it was really dark, and the car they were tracking was kind of a gray blur. The defense investigators found additional cameras that the police either did not find or chose not to collect. Cameras from neighbor Ring cameras or various businesses along the route. And they were able to show that the car the police had initially been tracking from the apartment complex had actually turned off the route in about 2 minutes into the drive. The second car they were tracking also turned off the route. So the police were tracking a third car that was completely unrelated to the investigation. The defense was able to show really easily with all the camera angles that the police were actually tracking the wrong car from from Tara's apartment complex to the victim's house. This case was headed to trial. Tara repeatedly insisted she had nothing to do with the murder. Although some of us might have had our doubts about her innocence, the state's evidence was just not very strong. We were months away from trial, and the police did some follow-up investigation. They used the GPS tracking system on Tara's cell phone to see where she had been in the days after the homicide. I'm not sure why they didn't do this initially when they first started their investigation, but this can happen where police will continue the investigation as a case moves towards trial. The police found when they did their investigation of Tara's cell phone and the GPS location, they found that the day after this woman had been brutally stabbed to death, Tara drove out into the country, which was out of her routine. It was not normal for her. So the police went to that location and they looked around the area. They used a metal detector and they ultimately found a switchblade that had been buried a couple inches under the ground. They also found a pair of leather gloves and a beanie hat. A beanie hat that clearly belonged to my client because there were pictures of her over the years wearing that same beanie hat. Can anyone guess whose blood and DNA were on the switchblade? This evidence changed the whole picture for trial. The state's evidence was now very strong, with the client's phone data leading the police to the murder weapon, and the weapon having the ex-wife's blood and Tara's DNA on it. Instead of going to trial, where Tara would undoubtedly have been found guilty of murder and been in prison for a life sentence without the possibility of parole, Tara agreed to plead guilty to murder in the second degree, meaning she has a life in prison sentence, but she has the possibility of getting paroled after 25 years. If you're interested in more of these videos, please hit like or subscribe. You can find full versions of these videos on YouTube and also training videos on Substack. Thanks for watching.